Whether you're fly fishing in a stream, getting those ankles wet, or deep in the ocean, casting nets, fish nerds, fish nerds, fish nerds, it's a podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Fish Nerds, the show about fish, fishing, and eating fish that's always entertaining, usually funny, and mostly true. I am your host tonight, John Crappie Hippie King, founder of Glasswater Angling Lead-Free Fishing, and sitting in the co-host chair again tonight is our own fish nerd librarian, the flatland fly fisher, Jeff Donaldson. What's up, Jeff?
Oh, not much. Just hanging in there. Counting my days to go to Alaska.
Counting your days to go to Alaska. It sounds like you're not going to be able to get by with just carry on the way you're talking.
Yeah. I'm the opposite of a minimalist. So yeah. I'm like, how much am I going to end up paying for all this stuff to go? I think luckily the airline, I get 2 free check bags, so I think I'll be all right. But we'll see.
Deal.
Hopefully, I don't go over 50 pounds on either of them.
Well, you were describing all this stuff you're going to take, and that's awesome. Because hey, this is your first trip. It's okay. You get to be, when these guy that's been up there a dozen times or something, then you might be able to trim it down. But I'd be going out of my mind. I'd be having, I gotta have a little bit of everything just in case.
My poison is that I want to use my rod. I want to use my flies.
Yeah. Because I am not that person either. I could not just take a lodge owner, they take their word. Oh, we've got everything. I'm too much of a fisher, and
it's like waders and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm taking my waders. I'm taking my boots.
Right.
I
want my rod.
Yeah, but I'm going to want at least my spay rods, and I may for the bead fishing, I may use one of their rigs, but for the spay fishing, I got to take mine because I know how to. It's the only one I have any feel behind. I'm not an expert at this spay casting by any stretch of the imagination yet, and so I don't think that I can just go from one rod to another without a little bit of a hiccup. So I'm like, I'll take the one that I know how to cast. So.
Absolutely. I mean, time is precious. You're not doing it every day the way those guys are. And I'm glad they have that option, so people don't have to buy a world of stuff. They're just like, trying salmon. We're just trying salmon fishing because, we're the only ones in our group that haven't done it yet.
All right.
Fabulous. Go up there, let them outfit you, let them take you out, do it. And then you can all have your party and talk about it. But yeah, a guy like you, I can't even imagine you using somebody else's rod. That'd be crazy.
I'm too much of a gear junkie.
Absolutely.
That's why I've never been able to.
That's gonna be my first thing. You're not Jeff Donaldson. It's like, it's okay. I'll just use this rod over here. It's like, all right, somebody throw a silver net on that guy, or whatever it is, to restrain this alien, because that ain't Jeff.
Yeah, no, that's gotta take all. I'm like, well, what if I need this fly? What if I need this one? But who knows? Maybe they'll be biting on clouds or minnows. Well, better take some.
Yeah, you're not gonna just take one.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not going to use theirs. What am I, a savage? I tried all these myself. I'm just looking at them, keep them here at home to look at them. No, I'm going to go throw them in a bush or a rock in Alaska instead of throw them in a bush or a rock here.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, that's fantastic. Well, we're all excited for you, and we're going to have a big, long report on that when you get back. Now, that's not until the first week in September, but the time to get going is now.
Yeah, you better believe it. Yeah, and if there's one thing, it's like all that years of scouting is the be prepared, right? So don't be packing the day before, right? Better have it mostly ready to go well ahead of that, But
absolutely. Hey, I know you started fiddling with this the minute you found out you were going.
Start time flies immediately.
Yeah, it does. It does. Speaking of time flying by, I want to do a quick throwback. If that's all right with you, I want to do a quick throwback to Fishing Austin in Central Texas. We had a lot of fun with Aaron Reed's book, and we talked about his style and his very specific mentioning of his favorite spots. I just want to point out those are his favorite wades. He points out in the book that you get a kayak, a john boat, a canoe, you can do a whole lot of other things. This is, like I say, we kept talking about the visitor, the person that's in a bit of a hurry. They want to be able just to go out and shore fish, wade fish, get in there. He's out to get him into fish immediately. But I just bringing this up because I'm rereading Dances with Trout by our king, John Geirach. And he describes his trip to Texas in this one. His paddling up and down the Nueces and the Guadalupe rivers and catching the fish. And that's all he said, oh, yeah, we'd stop. And technically, you're not, allowed to stop and get out of the boat. In certain spot, Texas water laws are interesting to say the least. Now, they're a lot more open than Kansas. But anyway, the point is, you want to paddle. You've got a belly boat. You want to paddle. You got a John boat. Once again, Aaron will be right with you. Of course, Big John will be right with you. And the great thing about Dances with Trout, it was written in 1994 before this area was technically, quote unquote, discovered. It was a reader of his that said, hey, y'all need to come down here and we'll take you out on the little rivers. And he did it back in those days. So I can only imagine the fun he must have had. But anyway, you go down there, don't sweat it. You can either use Aaron Reed's spots, wade around. But by golly, if you want to get into a John boat or a canoe, you can lose yourself in there for months on end.
Yeah. And, ever since I've been kind of reading up on all these various, and I'm just going to call them red-eyed basses, all these various indigenous bass of the kind of the upper South, or across the South, that kind of the upland South. And I'm really interested in this now. I mean, because it's like you go across all the way from Texas all the way across through, like there's a whole bunch of different subspecies or species there in Alabama and stuff. And now I'm really fascinated with these fish. And it's like, I may have to get a fishing trip together to go down there. Because I'm really interested by these bass that behave like trout, right? That have kind of filled that trout niche, just where the water's just a little too warm for a trout, but they're basically filling that niche. And now I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. And there's a potential to go do some kind of bass slam or something like that. So,
well, it's awesome. And it is.
And the Guadalupe sounds like the place to start.
Right? Well, it could be. But of course, in the Bob Mallard episode, we heard about the Alabama red eye. And I just, stream fish is a stream fish. If it's too warm for trout, clearly bass evolve in kind of the same direction, kind of along the same sizes and the whole bit. So it is fascinating. Jeff, why don't you give us a quick rundown of what we're going to be doing on the show? And I got a little something to say, and then we'll get on with it.
Well, we got our interview with Femboy and his brother. We got that going.
We definitely have that one going, but we're going to start off
with, of course, what do we always start off with? Fish in the news.
Well, no, Fish in the News is going to be second. Our first feature.
It's two old farts talking about fishing.
Two old farts talking about fishing. Correspondent Tim Tacklebox Beach been after me to do this story, and it doesn't take too much encouragement to get me to talk about ultralight fishing. But he joined a really fun group on Facebook, a fast rising group called Ultralight Enthusiasts, and it's really good. It is a really good group, and it inspired him to talk about the contrast between how we used to fish ultralight and how we fish now. So we'll be doing that. Then we'll do a little Fish in the News for y'all. And then, yes, hey, forgive Jeff, everybody. He's tongue-tied. He's falling apart. So am I.
This is my brush with fame.
Yeah, hey, this is it. This is our brush with fame.
I'm serious. I'm like starstruck by
we are. And you'll pick it up when sorry to interrupt you, buddy, but I mean, they will pick it up when they listen to the interview.
Yeah,
this is the biggest YouTube person we've ever had on this show.
And
they've got a big 6-figure following and amazing human being. Just these brothers from the Ozarks. Anyway,
all around.
Yeah, they're just a couple of princes. Absolutely. Anyway, we've got Femboy at last. We've been talking about it. It's here at last. And that will be our feature interview for tonight, or our feature conversation. We don't like to call them interviews. And then we're going to have a little culinary corner from a charming lady from Ottawa, Canada, my friend Nicole Lewis, who talked to me about the Caribbean way to make fish tacos, but we'll get to that last. Before we get going, I just want to tell everybody the show's going to monthly, and that's been kind of a big anxiety for me, but I finally came to the conclusion, I can't worry about what other podcasts do or what the experts say about, what it takes to have a good podcast. That's fine for people who want to follow formulas and make money. I mean, we could do a whole POV podcast like that. Rogaine, what's that guy's name? Rogaine, Joe Rogan. Yeah, and that BS sells. Maybe we could squeeze in yet another crime podcast that would sell, but we're hardcore Indian. We're about fishing and eating fish. So we don't follow any rules. We never have. We're kind of working on a loose framework that Clay's always kind of wanted to do. But other than that, we don't have consistent release dates. We'd love to, but it looks like for now we're going to stay punk rock, Jeff. And
we're doing this. We're going to do
DIY
as you get.
Yeah, we're going to do the shows, when we can show up for them. We're punk rock, and why our production limitations aren't the result of chemicals and ego. They are the result of raising families and founding businesses and doing research and dividing our creativity and our energy as best we can over lots of different projects, including Fish Nerds, and it'll always include Fish Nerds. It's one of our things. And so it survives, and we'll keep casting pod and rod. I mean, Clay started this craziness back in 2011 with an ever-evolving merry band of helpers, and we intend to keep the show going. So please enjoy this show. Please stick with us. We're going to keep putting them out, but I'm not going to make a big deal about when I get it done or when I get it released, because I just plain can't. Good luck for Glasswater means kind of bad luck for the Fish Nerds here for a little bit anyway, till we can get a little more help in here and all that kind of stuff. But the good side is we made the show a little bit longer. We've got some bonus material that we may or may not get out as a surprise. But one thing is never going to change, Jeff, and that's our listeners. We have the best listeners ever, best listeners in the podcasting universe, and we appreciate you all stopping by and letting us fill your ears up with fish stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you very much in closing. Hey, buddy, let's get after it. Let's go for it. How about two old farts talk about fishing?
Talk about fishing.
Oh, yeah? Well, listen, you lunk-headed, lard-butt, limp-line plastic lizard. I say graphite and carbon are way better materials than fiberglass.
Don't you dare insult my 1974 Shakespeare wonder rod I got out of Tubby Sheldon's trash back in junior high when he left Wellsville for the bright lights of Olathe, you buzzard backdoor eating, buckeye choking, woolly bugger. I still fish with that thing to this day.
And hand-tied jigs? One shape fits all. You don't even get near the color blend you get with plastic tails, you putrid, pig-bellied, pole-sliding pencil popper.
Oh, now you've done it. Now you have done it. I am going to rip that nose hair right out of your head, you neon mayfly, muff-wearing microfiber meat stick in a soiled tutu. I'll rip it out, and I'll tie a dozen jigs with it.
A dozen jigs?
Yeah, 8-ounce jigs.
Boys.
I am going to come over there and bind your biscuits with easy braid.
Boys.
Oh, bring it, man. Bring it. I'll turn you into a monofilament mega mummy.
How dare you fight like that when we have customers in the shop? Now act your age.
If he acts his age, he'll turn into a pile of dirt, and bachelor buttons will grow out from where his beehole used to be.
And if he acts his age, we can trade in the half a pack of Depends he got at the garage sale for a box of secondhand Pampers.
I am Lucy the Luramatic supercomputer, not your babysitter. I said, that's enough. If you do not behave toward one another, I will put cheese on your barbecue.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would. And I will take your beer away.
No, you wouldn't.
And serve you nacho-soaked barbecue, with expired, lukewarm, tangerine coconut sparkling water from the unclaimed freight store.
Oh!
And you won't get any of Grammy Willett's peaches and cream pie for dessert. I will give the pie to our neighbor Bud.
You can't mean that.
I do mean it. And I am just getting started. Would you like to hear more?
No. We'll be good. We'll be good. I promise.
I do not understand anyway. You two are always having differences of opinion about fishing. But it has never come to this. What is going on?
Well, we ain't talking about any old kind of fishing, Lucy. We're talking about serious fishing.
We're talking about ultralight fishing, a type of fishing among the finest our favorite pastime of angling has to offer.
I see. Here is a cold 6-pack of Rolling Rock. I want you to split that, and remember what you mean to one another. And I want this piece about ultralight fishing to be finished before dinner. And, while recording it, I want you to display manners, like are shown in the Facebook group, ultralight fishing enthusiasts. Members there show respect toward one another. Group owner Jimmy Burks would never put up with your behavior. And if you do not behave, the cheese is going to pour.
And if we're good?
Can we cancel the coconut tangerine water?
Yes. And I will bring you a craft dunkel lager to have with dinner.
Oh boy, and some peach cordial to have with the pie?
Sure.
Can I mix mine with Coke?
Gag. Yes, I guess.
It goes better with 7-Up.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Why, you pea Brett?
Boys.
I think we best start opening these beers.
Good idea.
And now for a fish nerd's favorite, two old farts talking about fishing.
And now it's time for two old farts talking about fishing. Well, all jokes aside, Tim, how is your plan for keeping the ultralight in your hand in 2024 going?
John, it has been great. You know me, my mantra is go small or go home.
Right on, man, right on. But what got you extra excited about it this year?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about when I was a kid. I fished a lot of creeks and small rivers and ponds, and I didn't care what I caught. I just wanted to be fishing. And ultralight fishing reminds me of those times as a kid when you just went out to catch anything that bit. And I have fished a lot of different methods in my life. I've done heavyweight bait casting for bass, surf fishing, trolling, fly fishing, but I always come back to ultralight. I just love it.
Well, that's crazy because, you know, it does seem in a lot of ways we come full circle in our lives. I mean, I don't know about you, but my taste for sweets, man, is amping up like nothing else. And I'm sure it's going to get worse as I get down the age road. And, you know, as for me, I never got too cool to panfish either. But by the time I was a young man in my late teens, bigger fish, power tackle, all that stuff started occupying center stage in terms of my fishing desires. However, once I became a dad, the kid fisher in me was reawakened, and I started gravitating back toward more simple setups, the joy of a bobber going down. And I've always felt like detecting the bite was a big thrill. And actually now it's a bigger thrill than hunting a fight with a fish. I'm fine to fight fish, but boy, watching that line twitch or just feeling that tick, you know, the ding is the thing, Tim. The tug is the drug, and panfish are back to being star of the show now. Getting in touch with your kid self. Okay, that's cool. But what was the other reason you had for focusing really hard on ultralight this year?
Well, you know, John, you and I have done so much research about tackle and lures and everything. And my second reason is fishing technology and manufacturing is so much better than when we were kids. I still have a Daiwa 7200H reel that I had as a kid. It is a brick. Reeling in a fish is like it's like cranking the starter on an old Model T. I mean, it is just so hard. There's nothing finesse about it compared to today's tackle, the rods and reels and line.
Well, we did this piece because you and I come at this from two different places, and we have some gentlemanly disagreements about stuff. I mean, but I can certainly see where you're coming from. But we were crappie people, and we hung out with some serious crappie chasers. So we always had some pretty decent gear. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, we used those Mitchell 308s. And then when the 408 came along, we switched to that. And while those reels weren't perfect, I mean, we had to buy bale springs by the case and all, but they had great drags on them. And they were really, really good reels. And then, you know, companies like Shakespeare with the Wonder Rods and Garcia with some, you know, the Color Series, they were making some pretty good ultralights back then. I mean, I know they made a lot of noodles and dogs and stuff, but you could find a real good ultralight if you knew what one was and what to look for. But in the late 60s and 70s, when finesse fishing was getting started in places like Tennessee and the Ozarks and Texas, these bass guides, they knew that they had to get their clients into fish in the summertime. And sometimes ultralight was the only way to do it. And so you started finding longer rods, more versatile actions and so forth. All that stuff started hitting the market, and it was a whole new world.
Yeah, the rods today are so much better for casting light micro lures. When I was a kid, most of the rods felt like steel girders. You know, if we weren't fishing with a rod, we could use it to play wiffle ball with. I mean, it was just stiff.
Yeah, well, in fact, we did call them ball bats, some of those rods. I mean, back then, because they just were completely dead in your hand. Yeah, true. There was still a preponderance of pool cues, and then these willowy rods with a soft, slow action that went from butt to tip. I mean, that was a lot of companies' idea of an ultralight. But rods with a fast tip for tossing light baits, but possessing a lot more guts and backbone, but still retaining that ultralight weight category, they eventually started becoming commonplace. My rod building friends say it's all in the taper. And then, of course, graphite came along and the world changed once again. And you're absolutely right. Rods are so much better on average now. And if one wants a lifetime rod, there are plenty of directions you can go to find an outstanding ultralight that you'll be proud to own for years and years and years. And heck, now there's companies like ACC crappie sticks that are zeroed in on one panfish species. I mean, that's how far this market has come. However, you know me, Tim, I still love the old glass rods. My favorite is a 5.5 foot 70s Abu Garcia ultralight I got at a church sale. I call her Little Blue. And I do, a lot of my fishing with that rod. It's fabulous. And my next favorite is my Harold Inslee Autograph Series ultralight, which was also made by Abu Garcia in the 60s or 70s. I scored that one at a knick-knack shop over on Troost up in Kansas City. And when I can find them, the old Shakespeare Wonder rods are great. I mean, but they are crazy hard to find, especially the ultralights. And then I can't help but be partial to those ultralights Wright McGill made for Eagle Claw, starting in the 60s through the 80s. I mean, they're a little wimpy for white bass, but man, they are just on target for crappie, bluegill, and trout. All right, so I've said my piece on my old-timey setups. Tim, what's your ultralight setup? Talk to me about these higher-end, more modern rods and reels.
I have a lot of different ultralight combos, but my favorite spinning rod setup is a Daiwa Presso 7-foot rod. It has a lure range of 1/32 ounce to 1/4 ounce. So you're not casting anything big with this. But even though it starts at 1/32 ounce, I can easily cast a 1/64 ounce lure with it. The rod is super light. It just doesn't weigh anything, so you can cast it all day, but it has enough backbone to handle larger fish. And I pair that rod with a Pfluger President reel. The combo runs about $160, so it's not really high end, but I am amazed at how that small, light rod, how it can handle the big fish. It's just been amazing for me.
Well, it sounds awesome. I can tell you, when you have a rod that'll throw a 1/64 ounce bait, you found something special.
But John, what really has me excited are these new BFS combinations. BFS stands for Bait Finesse System. So I've always loved bait casting reels, mostly because of the accuracy. I mean, you can drop a lure wherever you want it with a bait casting reel, much easier than with a spinning outfit. So a BFS reel, it's a bait casting reel that allows you to cast 1/32 ounce lures. And the way they do it, so you don't get backlash, is there's a system of magnets that keeps you from getting that backlash when you cast. And it is simply amazing. And because you're using very thin line, we'll talk about line in a little bit, you can cast these things a country mile. And so my combination for that's a little bit more expensive. It's about a $240 combination, which I can tell you is at the way low end for these BFS reels and rods. You can spend, $400 or $500 on a reel, but I have one called the Kingfisher FF01. And that's the reel. And it's on a 6-foot Cast King Kestrel fishing rod, $240. As I said, it's on the low end, but this thing is just a ball to use. You can drop the lure wherever you want. You can fish all the techniques you would with a heavier rod. So I'm catching bass on this, but I can catch panfish on it and still have a ball with it. It's not overpowering them at all.
That is so exciting. And of course, like a lot of people, I've looked at this with a real critical eye at first. I have a guy I follow, Jimmy Lee at Raw Fishing, and he was out there throwing those 16th ounce jigs and so forth. And I was like, oh, come on. And then my friend Les, we call him the professor, he brought one over and he said, no, honestly, try this thing out. And you can. This is insane to me. A guy that was raised in the old Ambassador 5000 reels, in those days, that you can toss even a 1/32 ounce jig with these things. And you're right. You can't. People are like, why do people use those casting rods when they can backlash and do this? Accuracy.
And the other thing, John, is this reel, the entire reel is 4 ounces. So between that and the rod, if you're out there casting, 1,000, 2,000 times in a day, it is just easy to do. It's effortless, but you can get these long casts out. And one of the cool things about it is the way that line has developed. And that's a big thing. When I was a kid, if you use 4-pound test line, it broke all the time. It would get old, it would get kinked, it would get tangled easily. And it was so frustrating to use. And I just hated it. But now I'm using spider wire, 6-pound braid. It's translucent and it has the diameter of 1-pound tests. So with this light gear, I can actually muscle a larger fish, at least a little bit. I don't even use a leader because this line is so thin. And you combine that with these ultralight setups, and the technology is different. I mean, I can land almost any fish I can hook. In fact, I've never lost a fish on this because of the gear being ultralight. I just lose fish because of sheer incompetence, but not because of the gear.
Hey, self-knowledge, an honest man is a good man. Oh man, I tell you, speaking of line, yeah, as a young person, I lived on cheap Kmart line. And I mean, that stuff would practically dissolve in the sun. And, you start having break-offs, a week after you put it on and all that stuff. And, I will, because I'm not a fly fishing purist, I'll buy some cheap mono to put together fly fishing leaders. And I hope the Fly Fishing Purity League doesn't hear this. But anyway, I really do appreciate the good stuff. That's where you've got me by the modern age. Because even as a teen, sometimes, us kids, we'd suck it up and buy Trilene, which is still my all-around favorite. We'd buy Stren when we could get hold of it. But right now, I'm with you. I'm a braid man, although I am ready to investigate fluorocarbon and especially copolymer lines. They are on my list to try.
Yeah, every year we see these new developments. And so it's fun to test this stuff, and it makes fishing more fun. And part of the reason I love this too, John, is some people love to go out and just catch the biggest fish. They're going after lunkers. But I've always been the kind of person, I like to go out and catch a lot of fish. I would rather catch 20 smaller fish than one huge fish. But the cool thing with today's ultralight gear, you can really do both. You can go out, I can catch some big smallies and I can catch smaller fish, and I don't have to change the gear. And in fact, on YouTube, there's a YouTube video on the iFish YouTube channel where he catches a 40-inch pike on a 1/64 ounce trout magnet. Now, John, that's a lure that's less than 1.5 inches long. And since my gear can handle up to a 1/4 ounce lure, I have a lot of options. I even fish topwater with this light gear, and I don't have a problem with it. Matter of fact, that 40-inch pike that he caught, I think he caught that using a Daiwa Presso rod, the same rod that I have.
That is fantastic. And of course, I know, but in fact, the last big bass I caught was on a 1/16 ounce jig. So yeah, big fish will hit small bugs. But I know you, my outdoor rider friend, you've got an analogy for us. Let's have it.
Well, John, this is my theory of lure size. So, John, say you go into a fine restaurant.
Oh, you mean like Waffle House? All right.
Exactly. Just like Waffle House. So you go to Waffle House and you look at the menu and you see the T-bone steak dinner with hash browns and Texas toast.
Oh man, that sounds good.
But then you see the pork chop dinner.
Oh, wow. Now you've turned it into a tough decision.
But then you think, maybe I should have the all-star breakfast with 2 eggs, toast, a waffle, grits, and bacon.
Oh, man, breakfast is good any time of day. I'm going to have to sit here and think about this now.
Exactly. That's my point. You are just like a big fish eyeing a big bait. You're eyeing it, but you're not quite sure if you want to eat it. It's a difficult decision. You got to stare at it for a while.
All right. Reel us on in. What's this got to do with ultralight fishing?
Okay. Now imagine you're at a Super Bowl party.
Go Chiefs!
That's right. You're rooting for the Chiefs, and a tray of hors d'oeuvres passes you. Your hand instinctively shoots out and grabs anything with a toothpick in it. You pop it into your mouth. You don't even know if it's sesame chicken or a stuffed mushroom cap until it hits your taste buds.
Have we been to a party together? I mean, that is exactly what I do.
You don't hesitate like at the Waffle House. You pop those appetizers into your mouth without thinking. That's ultralight fishing. It's good for catching small fish, And it's hors d'oeuvres for lunkers. The lunkers don't think when they eat a little bait. They just eat like a crappy hippie at a Super Bowl party.
Oh man, that is a sight to see, and it's a lot of fun too. But really, honestly, you're right. It does happen a lot. I mean, I know some big bait, big fish people, and they've got their point of view on this. They say, with small fish fooling around with your lure all day, the big ones don't have a chance to get at it, or they'd rather pick off the little guys, off the edge because you've already brought them together to, hit your setup, and they're exposed. And now these big fish come in and pick them off without you even knowing it. However, I know one group of fishers is on our side, and those are people that trout fish, especially with fly rods. Get on Instagram, and you'll see picture after picture of honking big trout caught on 1/100th jigs, tiny dry flies, that sort of thing. And please, we do not have time for this, but I could talk for an hour about the time a carp the size of a knee-high boot has run off with my 32nd ounce jig. And in fact, speaking of the professor, he holds, in our little group, he holds the record for big fish on a small lure. He hooked and landed a 36-pound buffalo once on a 1/16th ounce jig and 4-pound test line.
Perfect example. Ultralight tackle, but you still have the possibility of catching those big fish. And, John, there's one more thing that I love about ultralight fishing. What would you say is the percentage of the time that you fish your go-to lures?
Oh, come on, Tim. You got to be kidding, right? I mean, we've known each other long enough for you to remember that 80 to 90% of the time I'm fishing with a jig or a spinner based on a jig. And as far as colors go, I like chartreuse, black or white, either singly or in combination with each other. And even though I carry dozens and dozens of other colors and patterns, those are my go-tos, brother.
Yep. Same with me. I seem to fish the same lures most of the time, just like when I was a kid. Now, when I was a kid, it was because I didn't have many lures. I had one of those tackle boxes that you could hear the 5 lures in there just bouncing around the whole time. Today, I just like fishing some lures more than others.
Well, and I'll tell you, buddy, it's just simple fishing logic. I have good luck with jigs. I know how to get results with them. So what's going to be on the end of my line most of the time? Jigs. So they're going to catch most of my fish. So they're going to be my go-to lure because they're what I fish and what I successfully fish. Okay, so we both like jigs. Talk to me about your setup and what you take fishing with you. What lures do you like, Tim? What are your go-tos?
Most of what I fish are jigs or jig variations. I mean, it's just such a common thing. I have a jig box with about 80 small jigs, different hook sizes, different weights. A ton of those jigs are from Glasswater Angling. You made them. Jigs today are so much better than in the past too. They're small. The hooks are super sharp, and you have that thin wire, which is great for ultralight. It's easy to penetrate the fish's mouth. And you can pair a jig head with so many different plastics. And, one of my favorite things to fish that you got me onto is the Glasswater offset weedless Ned mushroom jig, and it has an extra wide gap hook. So this is something you can put a big bass worm on, but it's only 1/8 of an ounce, even though it has a number 1 size hook. And so a 10-pack of these is only about $10. This is a great deal, but I fish that, which seems like a big bass rig. I can fish that with my ultralight rods, and it's just a killer.
Well, thank you for the shout out. This is the kind of stuff I love to hear. Yeah, the Ned head with the extra wide gap offset that you can rig weedless has changed my life too. I'm telling you. Now, as to my setup, what I like are little bitty targeted jig boxes. So I've got a 64th ounce box. I got a 32nd ounce box. Actually, I have several 32nd ounce box. But the idea here is I don't need to bring 1/64th ounce jigs to a white bass trip. I don't need to bring these big 1/8 and 3/16th ounce jigs to a little trout fishing trip in a creek or a fishing trip in a creek where, the water depth and all that's not really going to support that size of a jig. But things that are always in each box, I always at least have a few underspins in there. And I highly recommend saving a space or two for the overhead spinners that are matched to the jigs in the box, because there's no quicker and easier way to basically double the amount of baits you have and to snazz up a plain jig than adding an overhead to it. So like my 32nd box has overheads with size 12 to 14 swivels, aught rings, and aught or double aught blades. I don't get any bigger. But as for the bigger jigs, I will carry everything from the biggest size the jig can run without keeling or spinning, which is usually about a size 3, But I also like to run those itty bitty aught blades over there because sometimes you just want a hint of flash. And as for styles and blades, I'm old school, buddy. I'm old school. The Holy Trinity. We've all heard of the Holy Trinity, okay? The Holy Trinity of blades. Rules my world, man. Colorado, Indiana, and willow leaf are basically all I use. I mean, these other blades intrigue me and so forth, but I'd have to be shown they work better before I take up space in these little boxes with them. And before I finish this blade talk, let's talk finish on a blade. I always have a few brass bladed spinners and a few with a messed up finish. I mean, sure, I like a shiny new nickel plated blade for the most part, but man, time after time, a scratched or weathered blade will really work well. And I guess that comes from being a kid and finding tackle on the shore and this and that and using it and have good luck with it. I mean, heck, sometimes we'd flame a nickel blade and blacken it up a bit just to tone it down.
Flame? You mean you would light a match and actually to discolor it?
Exactly. That's what we'd do.
I never heard of that. So you were the kid that was always playing with matches.
Oh, I had my wooden matches from the kitchen on me at all times.
So did you ever use painted blades? Because you see those on some spinners so you don't get as much flash, but you get that color.
You know, I don't very often because my boxes are full enough as it is, but I do have a few. And more than using them, I like to listen to the painted blade crowd geek out on them because there are two that fascinate me a lot. One is black blades for gray days and night fishing and such. And then the ones with paint on only one side or sides of two different colors. I think the idea here of having two different finishes on a single blade is that it creates a more pronounced illusion of movement. Now, fish see chartreuse, then red, then chartreuse. You know, I'm told that it kind of makes it look like a fish undulating through the water, whereas a steady silver flash looks less so. And then, wow, these eye spot people, these guys that love, or I won't say guys, I see these folks that love the eye spot blade. Same story. They're going to tell you a bunch of stories about the miracle of the eye spotted blade. It's the same logic. The eye disappears, it reappears. It makes it look like the head on the fish is moving from side to side. And I don't know, you can argue whether it works for you or not, but all I know is fishers love to tinker, then think about it, and then tinker some more. Bless our little hearts.
Yeah, I fish a lot of muddy and turbid water, so I love adding a spinner too. I always carry a few of like the beetle spin type blades with me because you have a couple of those with you. You can attach that to any jig with any plastic, and you have an instant spinner bait. And it does make a big difference, especially if the fish can't see it. They feel the vibration. It gives you a little bit more flash. It really does make a difference.
It really does make a difference. It really can make a difference. Now, I heard you talk about plastics in there, and I ain't going to set the fighting, but I'm telling you, here's a place where we really differed because I like to use tide jigs 80% of the time, and I will use plastics the rest. But you flip this script completely and have plastics tied on by the same percentage. So talk to me about your favorite plastics, man.
Well, because it's ultralight, most of my plastics, they range from probably a 1/2 inch to 3 inches. Most of them are around, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I like the Trout magnet split tail grubs. They work great, especially with some of your jigs. Some of your smaller jig heads are great. And the Trout magnet grubs range from about 1/2 inch to 2 inches.
Oh, yeah. The old split beetle tail. That was actually the first plastic tail I ever used.
And I like Z-Man a lot. We're both big Z-Man fans. Their micro finesse baits are great, especially the Stinger Z and the Baby Baller Z. I usually carry the Z-Man 3-inch Slim Swims, which is a swim bait, but with the narrow profile. And the 3-inch Minnow Z, that's something I will nose hook and fish on as a topwater bait. And it is just killer. It looks more lifelike because it's plastic when it's splashing around on top than anything else. It's just a great thing. But Charlie Brewer, the 2-inch swim baits, I mean, there's so many of them out there.
Getting back to Z-Man, this is where you got me, man. This is where you got me. The TPE plastics, which stands for thermal polymer elastomer something. Anyway, the TPE plastics, they're tougher. They last longer than plastisol. And right in there, durability is one of the main reasons folks favor tide jigs because they get tired of plastisol jigs just ripping out. after the second fish or after the 20th cast and having to replace them. But your TPE plastic, like Z-Man's Elastec, is closing that durability gap. And you're right that, they float for a top water, but you match them with the right jig head and you're going to get a drop that is so crazy slow. I mean, bluegill and crappie, they'll just go bananas over it. And if I'm going to, duplicate that in one of my tide jigs, I'm going to have to get into like bucktail, calftail, antelope, some other animal hair like squirrel tail. I got to bring in that sort of material. And I've got some other tricks too, but you've got to, dictate your material. You're not going to be able to duplicate that slow drop as much with marabou. You're going to have to bring in something else.
Yeah. And don't forget about versatility too. When it comes to switching colors, I can change out a tail before you can tie in a new jig. That's one thing. If you are changing colors often, then the plastics are a little bit easier.
Yeah. All right. You got me there. But then again, I don't have to carry around a tube of super glue to keep that tail in place. A tied tail stays where I put it when I tied it. But you and I both know once you zero in on your color with a plastic, you better pull out that super glue and glue that tail down, because the time a plastic user spends fooling around with his tail, because it slips down every other cast or every fish or gets bitten too or shreds up, that can be a lot sometimes.
Yeah, the TPE doesn't do that, but you are exactly right. If you're using plastisol baits, they just slip off so often. I once had a game warden call for backup because I left my super glue at home and I was dancing around expressing my frustration with alarming exuberance. I am just glad the trees don't have ears, because they would have had to put their branches over them.
Oh man, let's not spin off into cussing trees. We've all done it a million times, those lure stealing, eye poking, but I'm not going there, man. I'm not going there. Oh man, this is getting fun, but we gonna have time for a couple more things. We got to wrap this up. Talk to me about how you fish your ultralight jigs.
Well, really, like any jig, you can swim them, you can hop them off the bottom, you can swing them in current. As I said before, I use underspin jigs sometimes too, like the crappie dueler. That provides a whole new action. But that's the amazing thing, John, about ultralight lures. They make every lure that you can find in a larger size now. You can find it in an ultralight size and fish it about the same way.
Amen. So you're telling me, other than jigs, you have some stuff in your box. While jigs are a big part of this ultralight thing for us, we do carry some other lures. All right. Tell me about them.
Yeah, I carry a few blade baits like the Z-Man Flash Mini chatterbait. Most people think of chatterbaits and other blade baits as large bass baits, but Z-Man makes them in 1/8 and 1/16 ounce sizes, and they are fantastic. You can add any plastic to them. I carry some inline spinners, usually a Panther Martin, or, John, this year I got back to fishing rooster tails, something I did as a kid. I've just crushed smallmouth with the rooster tails this year. I carry some hard baits, a Rebel Creek copper, maybe a 2-inch floating Rapala. And you and I both fish the Berkeley Hit Stick, which is a new favorite of mine. They make a 2-inch version that's a great mini jerk bait.
Wow, 2-inch version, man, that's gone over my head. I love the 3 and 4-inch so much. I'm definitely gonna have to get one of those, that's for sure. And speaking of love, I like those Plano mini mags, those little double-sided boxes that'll fit into the pocket of your cargo pants. I call it my do-all box. There's a few jigs in there, but it mostly contains baits in the categories you mentioned, hard baits, some chatterbaits, such like that. But one you didn't mention, brother, was spoons. And I like to carry some Al's goldfish or some little bitty little Cleos or tiny daredevils. Got to have a few spoons. Any other suggestions?
Yeah, try getting some small tungsten drop shot weights, 1/32 ounce or 1/16 ounce, and pair them with some small plastic baits, or even get some small nail weights, like a 1/64 ounce snail weight, and try them with small plastics. There are so many ways that you can give a small plastic or a jig a new look.
And talking about the modern age, what is that company out of Tennessee that you like that makes all this tiny offset hooks and sells all those tiny baits and all these tiny setups just like this?
Creek Life Lure Company. Great company, great small baits. They're coming out with new things. And I mean, these are really micro offset hooks. Yeah, look them up on the internet. Really great stuff.
I mean, he ain't kidding, folks. He's talking about a size 10 offset hook. So you can set up a Texas rig that's 1.5 inches long. All right. I'm telling you, I might say this every other show, but we might have a new listener off in Kamchatka or somewhere that hasn't heard me say it yet. So I'm going to do it again. Always have some bobbers in your kit because a jig and bobber is one of the best rigs out there.
Yeah, I've been known to fish a small jig under a float, a pond or a river. It can keep your jig in a fish's wheelhouse for longer, keep it off the bottom. And there are some days when those bluegill just like to look at that jig for a while, and a bobber's a great thing to have. You know, a couple other final suggestions. You don't want to pack all this stuff and be really weighed down. So put multiple sizes and colors of plastics in the same package. I switch them out rather than carrying 4 packages with different colors. Put 3 or 4 baits of each in a single pack. It saves you a lot of space, and you're not going to use all those baits in one day anyway. And, some plastics will, the colors will bleed. So I keep my darks in one and lights in another. And you certainly don't want to mix up plastisol with a TPE bait because those will melt together. But as long as it's the same material, you can mix and match however you want.
All right. Do you bring a lot of different colored baits? I mean, like I said before, I use 3 colors most of the time, but I also carry olive, red, powder blue, canary yellow, purple in various shades, and gray. There's times, I mean it, there is times when a plum colored jig is the one that gets the most bites. I mean, there's special circumstances where your favorite colors don't work. You're going to have to pick an odd color, or at least one that's odd to you. But then all of a sudden you're zeroing in, and where you were getting, a strike every 5th cast, now you're getting a strike every 2nd.
Yeah, I don't play around with that too much. I go with light versus dark. I have some personal favorite colors. As a kid, I loved purple, but I don't think it makes that much difference to the fish. In fact, I watched a YouTube video where a guy caught 6 trout, each on a different color trout magnet in the same pool. And that's a topic for a future podcast episode, but sometimes it matters. I think on most days it probably doesn't.
Well, I guess that is another area where we're just going to have to agree to disagree, because I'm telling you, brother, if I don't have a Goldie or if I don't have a mallard flank bug in there somewhere in my kit, I will be distracted and have the shakes, and I just won't fish as well. Now, let's go on to something here. You're talking about traveling light, and ultralight fishers, we share something with fly fishers. We love to wade in the creeks.
I love to wade. I wear waist-high waders, not chest waders, because I have no interest in casting with water up near my neck. I mean, when I was young, I would do things like that. But I fish in some pretty muddy rivers where it feels like the Loch Ness Monster's trying to suck your boot off all the time. And it is hard at 62 years old to pull your boot out when you're up to your waist. I do not want to get stuck in the mud for good and have somebody find my skeleton out there in the river in my waders.
I hear that, man. Now, when you talk about your wading pants, are they the waterproof wading pants or that other kind that are warm season that are just made to dry out in 3 minutes so you can get back in your truck or your car? I've seen both kinds. One's just for protecting your legs. One's actually waterproof. Which kind do you like?
So no, these are they're just waist-high waders. They're full waders with their stocking foot waders where I wear the separate boot on them, almost like hiking shoes. But I get them from Cabela's. They're like $100. They're not that hot at all, partly because they're a very light material. I wouldn't go in very cold water with them, but there's a lot of just stuff when you're fishing in an urban area that I don't want to get my feet or anything else around. So I feel like they're pretty protected, but they're not too hot.
Well, you know me, I'm the budget fisher, and I do wear waders to the bigger creeks and the rivers 3 seasons of the year, because Kathy got me a set of basically new Hodgman waders off Facebook Marketplace for $25, and they are great. Now, they're duck hunting waders, so they're a little bulky, but they wear like iron. I mean, they're made to wade around in brush and places like that. And that's what I'm going to be plowing through a lot of the times, hiking up and down rivers for the white bass and the gar and the river fish I like to fish for. But in summer, I wet wade in just a pair of shorts with some pool shoes on to keep me from stepping on something I don't want to step on. And then day-to-day minimum, when I'm knocking around ponds, creeks, stuff like that, doing my ultralight fishing, minimum, I'm going to be in something waterproof, and I'm going to wear at least knee-high boots, because being able to get 3 feet off the shore can just change your entire day. I'm telling you, brother, when all my dreams come true, I'm going to have it all. I'm going to have it all. I'm going to have, the hip waders. I'm going to have wading pants, wet and dry. Right now, I keep looking at the cheap hip waders, but I'm just not wanting to have a pair that lasts, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. I saw these kind that the commercial fishers wear on the big fishing boats, and they're made to last. They're working man's waders. They're made to last 10, 20 years or more. And that's what I'm aspiring to. That's what I'm saving up for. So we both like to wade. Yeah. But we got to travel light when we do it. Let's talk about that.
So in the past, I've used a sling pack, but I started fishing with a vest this year. When I was a kid, I had one of those, a fly fishing vest, one of those like light cotton vests with all the small pockets in it. But what I find is a vest just distributes the weight more evenly. And if I'm out in the water, when I had the sling pack waiting for 4, 5, 6 hours, it would just kind of hurt my neck, because you had the weight on one side of your body. So this year I got a $35 vest from a company called Bass Dash. And I don't know if they sell anything else, but it holds everything. It has a lot of pockets. It's high quality. One of the things I like about it, I can hitch my net to the middle of my back with a magnet clasp. That way, if I need the net, I just reach behind and yank it off. I can put it back on. So that's something else that's not kind of dangling from my waist. But I only carry the lures that I'm likely to fish. I weighed them all at one point, and it's like 2 pounds in gear. But because it's ultralight, it's so many different lures, in there. And so usually I go out, I'm only fishing maybe 3, 4, 5 lures, if that. If they're biting on one thing, I'll just leave that on all day. So you really don't need to carry a lot.
I hear you. And here is where we really depart from our old kid selves, because we've got the experience. Okay. You want to dream like a young man with the wisdom of an old man. Well, when I was a tween, early teen, I would carry around, literally, Tim, I had a Filson Texan, which back then was the biggest tackle box you could buy. And I would take that to the lake and walk all the way around a 200-acre lake, fishing here, fishing there, with 7, 8 rods, a fly vest full of stuff, and my Filson Texan, because the idea of not having the lure that Fishing Facts or Field and Stream recommended or whatever just, tormented the heck out of me. And by the years going by, I realized that 99% of the stuff I was hauling around, I didn't use. It took a while to grow that confidence to get my lure choices compacted down and limit my rods to just 2 or 3 and stuff like that. So, I'm with you. We're brothers in ultralight enthusiasm, and I hear you. Ultralight also means traveling light when it comes to your tackle and your gear.
Yeah, it's fun to reminisce about being a kid, but you got to keep some common sense with it. My neck and back remind me that while I feel like a kid a lot of the time, chasing fish with an ultralight, my kid body is far, far in the past. That is ancient history. And so the time has come for us that we can relish the past, be mindful of the present, and look forward to the future, and still have days full of ultralight fishing joy and a new day of excitement.
Now it's time for 2 old farts talking about fishing.
And by the way, I'll drop the link to Jimmy Burke's Ultralight Fishing Enthusiasts Facebook group in the show notes.
All right, that was kind of a deep dive now, wasn't it? I mean, we could have sat there for hours because we felt like we barely scratched the surface. But
yeah,
we get, when you get in these Facebook groups, they're a great place for people starting out because they're so full of cool people, most of them. And the administrator for this one we were talking about is very, very good in that, it's no trolling, no, none of that. And very helpful folks. So if you're like, what rod should I buy? You're going to get a lot of answers. Okay. You're going to have some stuff to sift through. But anyway, that was a whole lot of fun. I know it's not your bag, and you ever want to do 2 old farts talk about fly fishing,
Hey, I enjoy some ultralight fishing, and it has come a long way. Certainly the tackle has. My gosh, it's like used to be these noodly rods,
Noodly rods. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you something, as much as I defend those old Shakespeare Wonder rods, they did have those, which were perfectly acceptable at the time, but those chrome guides on them. I mean, those old chrome plated guides on those rods, they would get grooves in them after, just a couple years of use. I mean, we fished with them a lot, but you can only sand those out so often. And then it's just, I mean, those grooves in those guides would get so deep they really would snag your line. That's another reason we pop off a lot of fish because of that. Even though I still love the old tackle, I know the limitation. Tim's like, hey, I can get a ceramic guide that's gonna last my lifetime and my grandkids' lifetime. I understand that. But anyway, yeah, a lot of fun to go back and forth. But you know what else is fun, Jeff?
What?
Catching up on what's been going on in the world of fishing. Let's do some fish in the news.
Oh, I love fish in the news.
News, fish in the news. Everybody loves their fish in the news.
All right, buddy. The first story I got for us tonight was sent in by our own Tim Tacklebox Beat. There is a bill before Congress, one of those rare bipartisan things, rare as of late anyway. The environmental group's getting ahead of the game. A controversial plan to commercially farm octopus for meat has led to a U.S. bill that would ban the practice, along with any imports linked to it. Bipartisan legislation to ban octopus farming was introduced in Congress on Friday, back in July. Octopuses are among the most intelligent creatures in the ocean, and they belong at sea, not suffering on a factory farm, said Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat from Rhode Island, co-author of the bill. Anyway, they heard about this octopus farming initiative getting going in Spain, and they're really heading it off the path. And Jeff, you want to tell us what some of the problems with octopus farming potentially are?
Well, number one is that they're a pretty intelligent creature, and surprisingly emotional as far as we can tell. I mean, it's really hard for us to kind of project ourselves into what an octopus thinks because it has such a radically different nervous system from us. But yeah, I think that's, and the concept of octopus intelligence has really come to the forefront with some books lately. There's one called The Soul of an Octopus and My Octopus Teacher. And yeah, really have kind of brought that kind of to the forefront. And I think another problem with it would be is I don't think the octopuses are very social. This is the problem I see is that they're not very social animals. They tend to be pretty loners. And I can't imagine what's going to happen if you stick a whole bunch of them in a big, I don't know how exactly they plan on doing this, but it's either going to be tanks or pins or something. The other thing is they're incredible at getting out of things.
Yes.
So that's another issue is how do you keep these things that can get out of anything? Anybody who's ever tried to keep an octopus in an aquarium can tell you that they're little nightmare creatures to keep in your aquarium. They will get out. And that's tiniest little crack. All they need to be able to get through is their little beak, and that's it. And so they're squishy and they can get out.
Yes, they are squishy. They are squishy. And I'll tell you what, the intelligence thing is concerned for some maybe, but I'm going to eat all the pigs I want to eat.
That's the thing I'm going, yeah.
Hey, but listen, this is one thing that Donna Hume, the charming co-host of the Varmints podcast, which is no longer around, but was a wonderful podcast. But she talks about domestic animals like hogs, chickens, cats, dogs, and how these animals chose us. They started hanging around with people. We didn't, run out and just grab a baby wolf and start domesticating it. These wild dogs started hanging around camps and so forth of the nomadic humans. And as they became more sedentary, we attracted more of these animals. Octopus don't do that. Okay. Octopus have no dependence on human beings whatsoever. I mean, people say, oh, hogs go wild and they lose that dependence. Sure, that's true. And other things like deer can develop the dependence to where you have the fallow deer that pretty much depend on being fed and will show up right in the spot to be hunted by these European game masters, when they're supposed to, and so forth like that. But what we got here, and what bothers me, Jeff, why are they isolated? Why are they solitary? Because they're top tier territorial predators. Okay. This ain't a thing of sardines or bluegill or something you just throw a bunch of feed into. This ain't going to work, man. It just ain't gonna work.
That's I mean, yes, they're not social. I have a feeling they're probably gonna go after each other. That'd be a big problem.
I just don't.
Be a problem.
Well, anyway,
them attacking one another.
Yeah. I think you're gonna have some mortality issues into this and that, but whether it's the inhumanity of it, these animals have not chosen us. They do not choose to be part of our complex of being. They're not here to be fed upon. I mean, and the biggest argument for it, tradition. It's our traditional Mediterranean diet. Well, you've overfished the Mediterranean, and instead, why don't you start off conserving it and raising the price of octopus and change your traditions, because they can be changed. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm not disrespecting anyone's traditions, but it's the worst reason in the world to keep doing something when you know the times have changed.
Yeah, I would eat octopus from a sustainable fishery because, I mean, frankly, I eat pork, and a pig is a very intelligent animal, and so it's but I want it from a sustainable and ethical source. And,
exactly.
I just don't see how they're going to be able to pull this off. I will say that the name of this bill, this is one of those, man, when they go to make bills nowadays, they can't just call it like the something act. They have to call it the Octopus Act.
Absolutely.
Short for opposing the cultivation and trade of octopus produced through unethical strategies. I'm just like, oh, groan. Oh my gosh. Let's try
the acronym.
It's like the USA Patriot Act. I can't remember what that all stands for, but I'm just like, just call it the No Terrorists Act.
Right.
It's just,
I like opposing.
Don't torture the English language into creating these acronyms.
Opposing the cultivation and trade of octopus produced through unethical strategies. I mean, how long? It took them longer to think that up than it did to write the bill. Exactly. All right. Let's move on.
Probably so. They probably have a focus group working on that one.
Absolutely. Okay. This is everywhere, but we can't resist these stories on the Fish Nerds and what we've got here. And like I say, this has been absolutely everywhere. But in the Smithsonian Magazine, very fine magazine, they say it might sound like science fiction, but researchers have discovered real cocaine sharks off the coast of Brazil. There's a smaller variety of shark called the Brazilian sharp-nosed shark that's popular to eat, very common, very close to the shore most of the time, and they have tested positive for cocaine. And these are not, in a contained situation like the Thames River in England. This is serious because this is an entire coastline near these metropolitan areas, and illegal drug consumption is without a doubt affecting the wildlife in the area. We've known it from other studies, and they bring up the European connection that drugs they make in Brazil end up in Europe and end up in European fish. So the team bought 13 sharp-nosed sharks from a small fishing vessel between September 2021 and August 2023. And they were all juveniles or small adults, roughly 20 inches long, 2 pounds. And they analyzed them, and what they found in their liver and muscle tissues was cocaine metabolites with concentrations up to 100 times higher than what has previously been found in other marine animals. When the team saw the results, they were actually dumbfounded, says study co-author Rachel Ann Hauser Davis, a biologist at the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation, which is affiliated with Brazil's Ministry of Health. Anyway, exciting, she said, but in a bad way. This is a top predator thing, Jeff. This is a top predator thing. So ways these sharks can be getting contaminated. Talk to me, man.
Well, I mean, obviously there's the idea that somebody here comes the DEA or whatever the Brazilian DEA is, throw this cocaine overboard, right? And then the sharks went, that looks interesting. But I don't think that's it. I mean, I'm sure it's going through the person first, entering the water stream, and then ending up there. And I do think that this also probably is more. So it's saying it could be drainage runoff from illegal labs. I'm still not buying that one as much either. I'm thinking it's all gone through a person first and got out there. Now that has something to say about the quality of their sewage system too.
Yes.
That this untreated water is getting out there. So the cocaine would be not exactly like at the top of my list of worries here compared to like E. coli or some of those other type things. But
I agree.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I mean, you're seeing that it's got, and one of the things they say, and there's a cocaine's got a low half-life in the environment, so it must be a constant flow in, right? And
Okay.
so that kind of to me rules out the drug runner through the cocaine overboard, right?
Right, right.
So then you've either got like waste effluvia from processing facilities, which could be, but more than likely it's coming through the people. Just like in everywhere now, you're seeing that like, oh, these fish are full of Prozac,
Right.
or this is the estrogen or the estradiol or the whatever human hormones that are entering this system are having some kind of negative impact on aquatic populations, and antibiotics and all this other stuff. I think it's all the same source.
I think you're right.
It's gone through the people first, and then it's ended up in the wastewater, sewage water.
Exactly. Let's talk about what we know here is that, okay, so the cocaine has that, half-life. We also know journalists would love to have another cocaine bear or cocaine pig story where, oh, the sharks are just taking giant mouthfuls of this stuff right off the blocks as they're floating around. That's not what's going on. It gets back to something more boring, more icky. And that's what we talked about. Oh, Clay knows the acronym, the sewage overflow. And these old, poorly built sewers overflow all the time. So, yeah, if it was just coke, okay, that would be one thing. But we are finding a variety of drugs in fish, in fresh and saltwater environments, and the clear, what's the word? The clear cause, the clear I want to say provocateur, but that's not the right word. But the clear problem is people going peeing it out, excuse me, and then it goes down the toilet and there's a heavy rain, and instead of going through the processing plant, it ends up going straight into the ocean.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering how much, I'm wondering how much difference just the wastewater being processed makes. I'd be interested to find this out.
I would be interested too.
How much is it raw sewage that's gone out, and then how much is this is just you can't eliminate it from the water? You can obviously reduce you can make this stuff dischargeable where it's not full of E. coli or whatever, but how do you remove the pharmaceuticals, right? And I just don't. It's maybe activated charcoal. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I get my water from this lake down here, and there's no, like, when the EPA caught this guy that was basically pouring straight diesel into this creek. Yeah, they told him to cut it out, but I don't know how much of that they're able to filter out before it comes out my tap. And frankly, at this point, I don't even basically want to know, because I can't turn over to bottled water because it's all full of plastic, microplastics and all that. Anyway, Jeff, I'm depressed now. I'm so depressed. We've got to move on.
Yep.
All right, here we go. How about some true crime?
Real true crime. This is the real kind of true crime that needs us to bring it to the forefront of everyone's attention.
I mean, Jeff, is that a mackerel in your pants, or are you just glad to see me, dude?
I know that grocery prices are high.
Yeah,
right. But let's face it, folks. That's no reason to go shoving seafood down your pants at the Publix, at the grocery store.
That's right. Police in Duluth, Georgia, said they were called to the scene because they went. Well, I have to read this the way this crazy reporter wrote it. Police in Duluth, Georgia, say they went fishing for 3 shoplifters at Publix supermarket this week. The Duluth Police Department posted on its Facebook page a fishtail resulting in the catch of 3 suspects. They're responding to a shoplifting call at the Publix off Buford Highway. A man was apprehended immediately for stealing fish, while 2 women who sought to evade capture by hiding in the store's bathroom were also eventually captured after a brief standoff, and they emerged and cooperated with the authorities and showed them where they had hidden the goods. And one had concealed several fresh red snapper in her pants, which is wild because she must have wore some extra big pants.
Okay. Yeah, this is a, yeah. How do you think you're gonna? I'm just gonna notice that
you're speechless.
You got the fish in your pants. I mean, I guess they're pretty baggy pants. I don't know how you think you're going to get away with that one, but I mean, could you get away with a couple like small tilapia? Yeah, maybe, but when you're grabbing a good sized snapper or something off the seafood counter, I wonder how they got it.
Yeah, I know, and that's what it's.
Was it shrink wrapped? I don't know enough about this.
I don't know enough about this, and it's.
Are they just grabbing it, reaching over the counter and grabbing it off the ice and shoving it in their pants?
The number of off-color jokes this is going to inspire.
I didn't even go there.
Yeah, we're not going there. We're not. We're going to go there. We're going to move on. All right. So but like they say, I hate for people to be hungry, I hate for people having to steal food, but when you start stealing the Lux food. The $15 a pound snapper. If you're just stuck to the tilapia, they probably just given you.
Hey, the tuna in the can, it's not going to like stain your clothes. So grab that, right? Or the packets. It's nice and flat. You can get it in there easily. No one will know you have it. These are your shoplifting tips from Jeff.
Exactly. They won't be going, well, you weren't pregnant when you came in here. All right. Let's move on. Uh-oh. You know what that sound means? It's time for our jackass. And speaking of stuffing fish in your pants, we got some aquarists that are on the make. All right. Florida man story. Some people will go to a lot of Florida man. Yes, indeed.
My man, Florida man. Little known fact. I am a Florida man. I was in Florida. I am a Florida man.
Some people will go to a lot of lengths when they're attempting to steal exotic items, but a Florida man appears to have taken a different step when he stuffed some exotic fish down his pants at a pet shop. The alleged crime was caught on camera and shows a man and a woman, later identified as Cruz Garcia Jr. and Crystal Dixon, entering a pet safari pet shop on January 9th. They made their way over to the exotic fish aisle, where a shop clerk, Kayla Trout, said they began to act suspiciously. And she's like, she knew that Crystal was trying to get her attention, and she knew that Crystal was trying to lure her back to the counter, and just started asking some random questions, just trying to keep her occupied. In the meantime, Cruz Jr. is over there dippering into some of these tanks, puts these fish in a bag, and then stuffs that bag into his pants. And there's video with this, folks. Follow the link. And they got the video of the dude doing it. He's caught red-handed. Jeff, you're the aquarist. You're the aquarist here. You're the aquarist.
Former aquarist, yeah.
Former aquarist. What do you think?
Recovered. Bill? I'm a recovering former aquarist.
Yes, indeed.
My pocketbook can't afford both fly fishing and aquariums as a hobby. But yeah, so number one, I don't understand why he's taking these fish, because they're not. They call them exotic, but they're like, these ram cichlids are not some kind of crazy expensive, wild, crazy fish. They're pretty common.
Ram cichlids.
Rams. I used to keep these, and I actually bred them. And they're very easy to breed in captivity. They're super easy to breed in captivity. They're one of the easiest like cichlids if you wanted to get into the world of breeding your own fish. These are certainly one of the easiest ones to do. So maybe he's gathering some stock to give himself a side hustle as a cichlid breeder or something. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, if I was gonna go risking arrest to steal some aquarium fish, it wouldn't be ram cichlids. It'd be something like some of those like discus fish. This is another kind of cichlid that they're kind of like the koi of the tropical fish world. They have all these different breeds and stuff, some of which are, individual specimens worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. I'm like, this guy's stealing like $15, $20 fish. And I think that's overpriced for a ram, but that's just me. But inflation hits the aquarium market, I guess, too. But yeah, that's just to go risking it all for these little fish. I'm like, they're really cool little fish. Very, 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 colorful, and they're interesting behavior. But yeah, stealing aquarium fish is not, especially like low value aquarium fish. All right. Well, I'm not exactly sure.
It does.
But he's a Florida man, and so we all know Florida man.
I'll tell you,
doesn't always think his things through.
Well, they were able to catch up with Cruz pretty quick. They got him charged, but the good news is Crystal I love that name, Crystal. I've known a lot of ladies named Crystal in my life, but I'll tell you one thing: you name your daughter Crystal, I think she's going to be a little wild. I think she's going to be a little free. All the Crystals I've ever known could be talked into a bad idea pretty easily. But at least Miss Dixon, Ms. Crystal Dixon, got her stuff and got the heck out of town because they can't find her and they've dropped the charges against her. Yes, Crystal Dixon, we are so very glad that you saw the light and realized that Cruz is an absolute loser and that a plan like, hey, let's make some beer money by ripping off the local pet shop, not so good. Not so good. Best of luck out there, Crystal. Find a better path in life. You deserve a lot better than Cruz. You've realized that. You're moving on. Keep moving. Godspeed. Good luck. But they've got Cruz Jr.
Yeah,
And they're gonna pin him to the wall because shoplifting fish from a small local business, that puts you on the jackass list. All right, Jeff, we got one more here. Let's do it quick. It's the cutest story ever. It's just a little video, folks. It's out of China, where this village saw that the local big pond, the little impoundment there, was overflowing because of some heavy rains. And they're walked out on the low water bridge out there. And they use these, we have them here too, those mesh food covers that you can put over the apples to keep the fruit flies off and so on. That kind of a thing. Anyway, some of them are plastic, some of them are made out of nylon mesh, what have you. Anyway, it's a great little, one of those great little spontaneous feel good things where the village is out there and they're all just kind of waiting for these fish to try and swim over the low water bridge. And the kids are having a ball with their little nets, this and that. But toward the end of the video, there's two creative young boys that are quick as a couple of cats and slap their meth covers, Jeff. They're
mesh.
Thank you. That changed the character of the story, didn't it? Yeah, they're quick, all right. But anyway, they're slapping their mesh food covers over these fish and catching them and getting them in the bucket for some soup later on. Everybody just enjoy that. Jeff, does that look like fun or what?
It does. That's the kind of thing I could see. I mean, I'm not a kid, but I'd probably be out there trying to catch some fish too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It just tickled me. It just tickled my funny bone. Okay. Let's get on out of Fish in the News.
News, fish in the news. Everybody loves their fish in the news.
Well, I wish I was Etta James. I could sing it out, but at last, Jeff, at last, the much anticipated. We have teased these people. We have talked about this. We have referred to this. We have probably pre-announced this, but here it is at last. Who's up next, Jeff?
It is Femboy fishing.
Femboy fishing. Say no more. Let's get into it.
All right.
You guys want to get started?
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Now, Aaron, when I first started watching you, here's the scenario. Okay. I'm riding along with this guy, my buddy Jeff, after I think a gar fishing trip. And we're just chit-chatting along as we ride back from the river. And he's like, I got this coolest channel on YouTube and you need to know about it. Femboy Fishing. And he tells me all about it. And I get into it. And here I see this dude, cosplay, Ozarks, starting right off wondering, why haven't you been killed? I mean, literally, I wonder, just in that it's a really redneck area. I'm not here to put people down either way, but I'm a semi-washed hippie and I'm nervous when I'm down there. Okay. I can only imagine where you're at with that. So let's start this off. Tell the folks, what is a femboy? Let's just start right there.
I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a boy who's feminine, pretty much. I mean, it's kind of like an online slang term, like with like Generation Z and stuff like that. Like it's pretty popular with like my generation, but that's essentially what it is. It's just a feminine boy, pretty much.
Okay, now my friend Grant, they are into androgyny, and so Grant is more into glam, makeup, being gorgeous, that sort of a thing. You're a little different with the cosplay and some of the things that you do. Explain to me and to the listeners, Japanese fantasy role-playing characters is one of your favorite cosplay type thing. And tell us about that.
Like what do you mean by the fantasy role playing? Like,
well, I don't
Well, I
know
think
if it's
actually,
oh,
no, you're thinking about the Hatsune Miku, which
oh yeah,
yeah, well, that's like a Japanese, that's like an anime, gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a singer,
she's a animated singer. It's like a virtual
right, yeah.
animated singer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Bridget and Astolfo.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other ones there.
Like Felix, yeah.
So anime, love that stuff. My daughter got me into watching Spirited Away and Akira and Paprika and all this stuff a while back. Fascinating. I'm going to just examine your motivation a little bit, if that's okay.
That's all right.
Well, talk to me about your motivation. I mean, I'm just like
the motivation for like starting the channel or
starting the channel
yeah.
and deciding to go out and challenge the system and challenge
yeah.
the norm and so forth like that. Where do you get the, well, I was going to say balls, but this is a family program, so I'll probably cut that out. But where do you get the chutzpah, the guts to go out in this risky sort of situation and be yourself the way you do so fearlessly?
It's fun. I mean, it's fun, and it's just, I don't know. It's just, I mean, honestly, it's just kind of a meme. Like I kind of just started it as a joke, like, because it's
I was gonna say, I remember like, like even a year before you actually started it, just saying, how funny would it be if I put these two things together?
Yeah, because it's like, it's so bizarre and nobody's ever done it,
Yeah, it's a total mashup. Yeah, that I would never have guessed. That's why when I first saw it, I was like, this is great. I'm just like, absolutely no one is doing this, right? You have got this market sewed up, right? And I mean, it's just like, this is just completely, it's like, okay. Because I was just kind of looking around for stuff that was like Ozark fly fishing and stuff. And I stumbled across you and I'm like, well, now there's a new way to go fly fishing, right? I mean, and just, it's just like, it's like immediately like, that is like, I would never have dreamed of this combination, but hey, it works. And I mean, and you're really good on camera too. So that helps it a lot too.
That's awesome. Love that whole inspiration. And my boss, we're all volunteers on the Fish Nerds, but he's always about crappie hippie. You're always reading things in. You always think things have these big, deep meanings, and it's kind of fun just to say, hey, man, I just thought it'd be fun, and nobody's doing it, and all this kind of stuff. And way to go! I mean, it's really working out for you. It's fabulous. Okay, now your evolution as a fisher. We're gonna get Michael in on. I start watching your oldest videos right off. Spinning reel upside down.
Oh that's
throwing
was embarrassing.
Throwing a 1/4 ounce lure into a stream that's 10 inches deep, things like that. Snagged again, getting a lot of burrs into your tights, things like that.
Yeah.
Now we look at you fish, and it's a beautiful thing. I mean, you cast so well. You're a
really good caster.
Is Michael responsible? Michael, are you responsible? How do you have you had your
no,
wing?
I'm a terrible caster. He's way better than I am.
Well, I mean, I used to learn from you. Like I still picked up a lot of things from you, especially with fly fishing stuff.
I'm good at like all the little details and rigging stuff up and what stuff to use and when and all the gear, but as far as technique goes,
I like a self-aware man. I like a modest man, because I've seen you. Jeff, chime in. Is spay casting pretty killer?
Yeah. I'm into it too. That's kind of my thing lately, is to get into the spay casting. It's been a lot of fun. And it is also easy on old joints, so that's the other thing I like about it. But watching you, Michael, do a lot of spay casting and stuff like that, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy knows what's going on.
It's actually, I focused so heavily on it to try to get it down and learn it that I'm like, I neglected my single hand casting, and like we went down to Florida a couple months ago and did a guided trip, and I'm like having to double haul streamers and stuff. I'm like, oh, I forgot how to single hand cast because I'm doing so much spay casting.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way. I'm going to Alaska here in September, and I'm like, they're going to ask me to single hand cast, because that's going to be a problem.
Look, you're all better at casting a fly rod than this guy sitting right here, because it's basically come on, Jeff, tell him it's like Charlie Brown in the kite tree. Okay.
You're not that bad.
Jeff, I did it again. come and get me out of here. No, but seriously, well, thank you, Jeff. But I'm a best method fisher. But a lot of times the bluegill, the panfish where I live, can get really fussy and only want to hit a tiny, tiny thing. So I pick up the fly rod on occasion. I think all three of you guys are amazing with the fly casting. Look, I'm gonna stick this in real quick. One of my favorite posts of yours, Aaron, was when you went to the Holy Land, you went to the Holy Grail, you went to Memphis, and in that nice little tennis skirt, the little tennis skirt and the sweater. And how did that go? Did you get hit on at all? Did you get some?
Oh, no.
No,
we literally just I asked my parents, I was like, hey, can you make this like, because it was my birthday that week. So I was like, for my birthday, can you guys like, because we were driving through Memphis to go to Florida, like, can you guys stop at the pyramid real quick so I can just get a picture with it? Because like it's like a big online meme, the Memphis pyramid is. It's like really popular online, like, because it's like one of the largest pyramids like in the country and in the world. And it's a Bass Pro Shop, so it's like kind of like a funny thing. So, and I had a bunch of people that had been messaging me for a long time saying, "Oh, you need to go to the Bass Pro Shops pyramid in Memphis." So, yeah, we finally went there, and it was pretty funny, I guess.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, this is another reason that the Femboy channel really gets my interest peaked, is because as I've grown into my advanced age, I've really become familiar with love what you got. Love what you got. You know, I complained all my life about Kansas fishing and why don't we have this and why don't we do that, and I want to go somewhere else. And that's what I love about your channel. You guys love your Ozark fishing, whether it is a little long-eared sunfish or a stock trout or a naturalized trout or whatever, you know. And Jeff and I, now we're on a thing where we're all about gar fishing, and we're all about cat fishing, and we're all about, you know, fishing and enjoying and having fun with the species we got. I mean, drum is one of my favorite things to pursue. Although I'm not very good at fishing for them, as in targeting them. But that's another thing I love about the way you go after your fishing, is you have a very keen appreciation.
Like, I think in the same way that like femboy fishing is kind of like the reverse of what you would typically expect of like a fishing YouTube channel. I think in the same way, I kind of have that same attitude with the way I kind of perceive fish and things. Because like, I think a lot of YouTube channels, like, you know, they always want to catch the biggest bass or the biggest flashiest thing that will get clicks. And it's like, I kind of like to just be realistic about it and show people that any fish are fun to catch. And it doesn't really matter what it is, if it's a 20-inch smallie or a 4-inch northern studfish or something. I mean, I kind of like all fish the same, and I like to show people that. So I kind of like showing people every aspect of nature, I guess.
That definitely puts you way into the fish nerd wheelhouse. That's yes. I mean, it really is. I mean, if you look back at the very original, the original purpose of this podcast was Clay and Dave going out to catch every single freshwater fish that wasn't an endangered species in New Hampshire and eat it. You know, and you know, so they were fishing for stuff like fall fish and just all kinds of like minnow species and stuff like that. And but then with the added bonuses of they ate them, you know, so they're catching sculpins and eating them. You know, and the sculpin I gather was not very good. But
random side note, I've always been kind of curious that like you know, log perch, right? Like the fish log perch, they're in the perch family, which is related to walleye. And a couple years ago, back when I was bait fishing, I caught one and was using it as bait. And when I cut it open, I noticed there was a bunch of meat on it. And I was always kind of curious about that. Like if log perch were like slightly bigger and you could actually eat the meat of them, I'm kind of wondering if they would taste like
it'd be like micro walleye.
Yeah, I always kind of wondered that.
Who knows? Well, maybe it's the next video. I don't know, but yeah, my guess is they probably pretty darn good. I'll tell you, you have put Ozark bass on my list. I didn't know there was such a thing. And they are cool as heck. I mean, love it. And talking about you guys' generation, I mean, absolutely. You know, around here, it's like, you know, who can catch the biggest catfish? Who can catch the biggest bass? All that stuff. And of course, crappie is king in Kansas. But the microfishing, the species fishing, the love what you got, fish, not in a tourist style of a way, or I don't know, you know, I mean, I don't throw shade on anybody. People want to trophy fish. They want to go to Norfolk and try to catch double-digit brown trout. Good for them. And I would do it. Somebody, you know, says, hey man, you want to go try to catch one of these honkers? I'd be like, fine. That sounds all right. But I'd much rather traipse up a little creek the way y'all do it and just go for it that way. And I'm not trying to be precious here and all that. But Michael, you are a very sporting, very awesome angler. Yes, but you're a lot more like me. Aaron, you are more is it okay if I say sweet? Because
all right.
Thank you, fish. I love you. Take care. This sort of a thing, the tenderness with which you release your desire to protect. All of this, it's really touching, and it really gets your fans going. And I think that's something really special. And I hope you never lose that, because that's another thing about loving what you got, loving who you are, loving where you're at, and loving what you're doing. And you both do it so well, and you make it look so appealing. And it really is just such a beautiful part of the world. I don't want to oversell the Ozarks, but if you put that on your life destination, people, be prepared to spend a lot of time down there, because it had its heyday maybe in the 60s, 70s, I don't know, a long time ago, with the bass and the this and that, and the Branson thing and the Taneycomo thing and all that. But there's a reason that so many lures, for example, so many fly patterns, so many things have come out of the Ozarks, and a lot of it has to do with the true hardcore Ozark anglers, and you guys are it. You guys are totally it. Okay, rant, sermon, praise, fest over. Let's move on.
I started fly fishing I first picked up a fly rod, I think back in 2009, and we're originally from Washington State. Wow. Originally from Missouri. I think we moved here, and Aaron moved here in 2010 with my folks, and then I moved here in 2011. And so when I moved out here, I actually college life, a few other things, fishing for me kind of fell by the wayside, because I was a big trout salmon guy out there, and I'm like, oh, what's in Missouri that I'm going to fish for, And it was only the past 3 years that I picked fly fishing back up and really kind of dove head first back into it and started discovering what's out here. And I've had people on Instagram get in touch with me to be like, hey, what state are you in? Where are you catching these fish? I'm like, oh, I'm in Missouri. Are you serious? Like, really? Missouri? I had a picture of, so you're talking about Taneycomo. Every fall we have our fake, they call it a fake brown spawn, where all the big brown trout, all the trophy trout come up to the dam, and it's kind of a free for all for a couple months, and you can catch some just ridiculous fish in 2 feet of water. And I caught this real old growth, old man of a brown trout. I think measured him in at like 31 inches, just huge. And he had, big old kype, and just he actually kind of looked, if you've ever seen pictures of like fall run Atlantic salmon in places like Iceland and Scotland, they look more brown and yellowish. I actually have people that were like messaging me that asking, where'd you get your Atlantic salmon at? What'd you get your Atlantic salmon on? I'm like, oh, that's a brown trout, Missouri. And their minds are just blown, because they're like, so I think that's something I think it's just cool. It's, you do a little digging and you can find things that you don't expect. And I think it's something that you can probably say that for almost every state as far as fishing goes,
You younger folks are changing the focus, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. It's still a fun place to go and try to hit those trophy bass, try to catch those spotted bass off the bridge abutments and the cliff faces and all that kind of stuff. But it's such a rich area. And if you look at it with a more keen and discerning eye, all of a sudden you see this entire world open up before you, and you have done that for me. And this rascal over here, has started it, because he's always on about his trips to the Ozarks. And no, he is not above going to Roaring River. He does do a lot of other things, and he's really, really cool. I'm going to wind this down because I got a couple more things. Jeff, do you have anything else you want to add?
Obviously your formula works, because you got a lot of fans, and I really love to see that. Most people think of like fishing as like, it's sometimes it's a hard sell, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go try to fool this stupid animal, and then I'm going to look at it and I'm going to throw it back in the water, and people are like, why in the world would you do that? But then, when you see like your stuff, it really does make it look like, I guess it's like, yes, let's get people interested in this. I really think that's like something that you do very, very well. It's like, I got to imagine that some of your people are coming at watching your videos from not fishing, and they're just like, these are great. And the love for the outdoors and the sport and everything, I just think that's really great that you're getting that across so well. That's really a big deal to me. It's like, just because we got to keep people interested in the sport if we want to keep it going. Because so much of like the conservation stuff is based on license sales and stuff like that. We got to get people interested in protecting these resources. I think it's really great to see somebody out there that's like just really getting that across and showing the real love for the sport. That's just, that was the thing that immediately from your channel, it was like, okay, this is great, because doing a really good job on that, and just very entertaining too. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that you make it look fun. And sometimes, a lot of times with a lot of the videos, it's all just like, look at me, I'm Mr. Man, and woohoo, Jim Bob gonna go out there and I'm gonna whack them and stack them, and it's like, listen, I was like, whatever, man. Your stuff makes it look really fun, and so that's what I really like about it.
I was just gonna say, a large portion of my audience aren't fishermen. And I think because of that, I feel like I want to leave a good impression on them, because if they do get into the sport, I want to make sure that if I'm the one that like led them to that they're getting a good influence. Because I would say maybe like 90% of my audience aren't fishermen. They're just there for kind of the vibes of the videos. And
I was gonna say, you've had quite a few that have reached out to you and said, "Hey, I've never fished in my life. Where do I start?"
Yeah, I've gotten tons of people who have messaged
me
asking me. Everything from like just basic stuff like how do I get into fishing, or where should I go to maybe find this or find this, all the way up to like some people, like there was one guy that asked me like spay techniques, and I was like, I'm just gonna send you over to my brother, because he's kind of more of the guy for that. But
when I watch your videos, it's such an integrated experience. You're about the scenery, you're about the fish, you're about conservation, you're about being sporting, you're about appreciation, you're about spiritual connection. All these things come together, make for a fascinating and fun experience. Also, this show is big on diversity. We have no problem with the fact that it's still older white male sport, older white male heterosexual sport. But I like to see this expanding into areas of the public that previously either felt that they couldn't do it, shouldn't do it, or were afraid to do it, because being different is not the easiest thing in the world to be. In that sense, I can't say enough good things about the channel. I actually had a customer. I have a lead-free fishing company called Glasswater Angling, and gentleman got my name, I think, off a comment, because my comments come in at my YouTube channel is Glasswater Angling featuring Crappie Hippie, and he got in touch with me and talk about how he fished with his dad and he wants to go out and fish with his partner. And I want to see this world open up to everybody who wants to fish should be able to get out and fish. So I'm gonna go on to a sensitive thing, kind of touch on where we started. Well, I don't want to talk about being intimidated or afraid, but I know there are times when you're a little bit nervous, at least when you were younger.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And one of your last videos, or one of your last fishing trips, you talked about the rancher riding out, and he sees what appears to be a young lady with luxurious long turquoise hair fly fishing in a kitty cat face mask. This is Hatsune Miku, this costume, and she's an anime character that represents some sort of voice technology in Japan. And you can look that up, folks, if you want to see more about Hatsune Miku. But you reacted by giving the little wave, and he just looked confused and then rode back into the woods. It seems like you're getting more comfortable, and the people in your surroundings are getting more comfortable. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I used to be so socially anxious. Like, it got to a point where it was like a logistical nightmare trying to find like the perfect time and the perfect place where I was never going to run into a single other person. And then if I did run into another person, I would like instantly panic. Like, it was bad. And now it's gotten to the point where I could be dressed in some crazy cosplay and look somebody dead in the eye and just be like, "Hi, how you doing?"
I love it.
I think everybody in fishing has a little uniform, a little outfit. I mean, the traditional trout guy, sure, most of the stuff is functional, but we picture hip boots or waders. We picture a crazy hat of some sort that's to keep the sun off. We picture the band with the flies. You can dress as a bass fisher or a trout fisher for Halloween, and people are going to know, oh yeah, you're a trout fisher. They're going to know. Okay. So it's not out there at all, this whole idea of dressing up or anything like that. The shirts, the special sunglasses, the special hats, the special shoes, the special pants, the special look, the special rod, the special reel, the special lures. I mean, it's going on. They're doing the same thing you are doing, except they have their little society that does it. You're out there on your own doing it. You're actually kind of a pioneer leading the way. Am I overstating this, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty pretty fair comparison. Like I think that's a pretty good way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely cliques in all the different. You wouldn't call them genres, but I mean different fishing communities, whether what you're fishing for. Or,
definitely. That's a good assessment.
Yeah. My wife totally makes fun of me because I'm like, well, I got to get my Patagonia shirt on and my, But yeah, I mean, it's a total uniform, right? I mean, I'm out there in my uniform, and sure enough, but it's definitely the way it is.
Whereas Jeff is brand, I'm not anti-brand, I'm just poor. All right. So trailing along behind Mr. Sims Waders, Patagonia, this and so on is old crappie hippie and his leaky waders bragging about how I got this rod at a garage sale for $5. I don't know what kind it is because all the identifications wore off on it, but it's a good old stick. So takes all kinds to make up a world.
The whole cosplay thing, I'm just a little too old to have kind of caught that, but I know people who are seriously into it, and it's like that angle, bringing that in. Also, I think like it's going to bring in a whole different group of people who are not going to necessarily think about fishing. They're just, I'm about cosplay, and so so that's cool too.
I'm going to ask two things real quick. Okay, one just slipped my mind, so let's go on to the next one. One of us wins the lottery. Jeff, me, Michael, you get to order a fancy boat of any style, of any kind. What's Femboy's boat look like?
I guess it kind of depends on like what kind of boat it would be used for, because like I wouldn't mind like a lake boat and like a river boat for different things, but I wouldn't mind like maybe just like a long john boat with like a good live well, and I'd love to make have like a pink and black like camo color scheme on the side, and maybe some sort of like maybe like a decal of like Astolfo or something on the side of it. Some femboy character like that, and maybe have something like that. I think that'd be nice.
I work by a lake, and I got a bunch of coworkers that all have boats, and I hear the horror stories of maintenance and costs, and I'm like, give me a good old 3-person drift raft or drift boat, and that's me.
I agree. Yeah,
I'm going with the flow. I'd rather drift down a river than.
I am right there with you, Michael. I got me a little john boat, got me a little kayak, just for bombing around on the ponds and some of these slow rivers. We've got some equipment that's suited to that. And while we dream on, I would love to have a lake going boat and this kind of a thing. And sure, I'd like to put like a heavy metal boat with a dragon on the front that has laser eyes and could shoot fire and stuff like that. I'm probably going to stick to something a little more practical, although Jeff and I go over the kind of James Bond boats we would like to have on occasion.
I got a funny story about that. My mother-in-law used to work for Johnny Morris in his office. And around the time my wife and I were getting married, I had this whole thing planned out that we were going to send an invite to him. And, he's like, oh, I don't know who these people are, but employees, kids. So, I'm going to, be nice and, maybe get something off the wedding registry for him or something. And that's when I put a tracker boat on there. And he's going to be like, oh, I know, I own tracker. I'll just send him one, but.
So what did he send you a little remote control tracker boat or?
No.
They're bringing you close to the experience. Okay. Yeah. One last question, and I need this because I'm old and somewhat out of touch, but it kind of hits me in the heart when people I like, when my fellow citizens, however you want to look, are being marginalized, pushed out, abused. And my daughter, who has all kinds of friends, in terms of her gay friends, trans friends, people like this, she's like, Dad, take it easy. All right. I know that you love me and you want me to be proud of you. And I know you like my friends, but you are being overly supportive. I mean, you are way too amped up on this. You're not at a 10. You're pushing it to an 11, and you need to dial the F back. So tell an old fart like me and a super hip guy like Jeff, what does it take to be a good ally? Not go too far, not make a jerk out of yourself. Just what's the best way for a guy like me to be supportive of a young man like you?
I mean, really just treating us really like anybody else, just with respect and kindness, and just, I mean, I know everybody kind of says it, but just, treat others how you'd want to be treated. So, I mean, and the same kind of respect that you would give for anyone else, you just give for somebody that might be gay or trans or anything. I mean, it's no different. It's just everybody has their own personalities and quirks, and really that's all that I would say that like as queer people we would want would just be to like just be to be treated like everyone else, really.
Well,
That's the best way I can put it.
Well, you put it very well, and I just, because I've gone off the deep end on I go off on kids, I go off on my lady friend anglers, I go off on in this over support type situation. I mean, when you mentioned wanting to have the pink camo, my little friend Rosie, who is a child prodigy fly tire fisher, she's 9. That's her favorite thing. That's that's her costume. She has a purple kayak. She has she wears the pink camo. She knows exactly how she wants to look, exactly what she wants to wear. She's amazing, and I really do have to kind of pull in a little bit. In fact, Clay's like, enough with the Rosie. How many pieces are you going to keep submitting with Rosie? And this is not a kids podcast. But I can't help myself. Well, anyway, I just kind of wanted I get plenty of tips from my own daughter, and I just wanted to hear it from you. So thank you very much. My brother, Flatland, you got anything else?
Nope. No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Well, let me tell you something. When I suggested, when you agreed to do this, I said, I got Femboy for the show. I can't believe it. Jeff's like, let me in on it. I'm like, okay, all right, absolutely. I said that. Well, you turned me onto the channel, and you are my pipeline to Ozark knowledge. So absolutely. Besides the fact that we've become very, very good friends because of this show. But is there anything either one of you talk about, shout out, say on your mind, a cause of this, a product of that, or help a sponsor, whatever you want to do? We always give our guests a few minutes to pump their channel, either in terms of promotion or rant or cause. Michael, let's start with you. Go.
Say I don't really have anything. I kind of dabbled with the trying to get sponsors and products and stuff and for Instagram, and I got to the point where the content started interfering with the fishing, and I was just like, I'm not about that, and kind of just went back to posting and doing whatever I wanted to do. So
yeah, but you're a really good follow. So definitely shout out your Insta.
Yes. What is your Insta?
It is siren_string_stream.
Yeah, you are one hell of a fly tire. I love looking at your underwater shots, how the flies in action. Have you ever considered guiding?
Yeah, I've thought about it. Maybe one of these days. I still don't. I want to get to a point where I feel proficient and comfortable enough where I can, charge somebody $300-400 to go on a guide trip. I do enjoy it. I enjoy teaching people. We have some local people who reach out to us on Instagram, like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, I mean, you mentioned crane. That's a hard one for some people. And I had somebody local that messaged me that was a follower. It's like, hey, you got any tips? And I'm like, I'm going to be there Monday. Come and I'll show you around, So I would definitely love it. I enjoy that a lot, whether I make money with it or not. I don't really care.
I wouldn't mind having a fly tying episode with you too, just because, you're a good tire. I enjoy looking at your stuff. I'm dabbling in the same stuff, the spay type stuff and stuff like that. And it's so maybe someday we talk fly tying here too. So
I could probably, we talked about trout spay. I could probably do about 3 or 4 episodes for you.
Yeah, same here.
Absolutely. Okay, Aaron, your turn.
I was about to say, on the topic of the fly tying thing, be sure to go check out my new videos, because I'm about to overhaul my channel and make a bunch of new types of content, like daily fly tying videos and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So my YouTube channel, I think it's easy to find. It's just Femboy Fishing, and Instagram's also the same. It's like Femboy_fishing. And then I also have a Twitter, which is it's like Femboy YT, and it's like a capital F with like a capital Y and a T just all together.
We do a lot of stuff together on both platforms. So if you find me, you can find me vice versa. So
we collab on a lot of reels and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, I'm gonna ask this just for some of my friends that enjoy nail polish. Nail polish brand. What's your fave? I know what my fave is. I want to hear what your fave is.
Oh, so I get mine done at a nail salon, and they use a brand which is called like the gel polish, or no, it's called the gel bottle ink. And that's usually what I like. They have other types of polish you can get there, but that's usually the one I get because it's like really high quality, and they have a bunch of colors I like, and they're expensive, but they're really good. And they have a really good nail hardener too, which a nail hardener is essential if you go fishing with nails, because if you don't have it, those nails will be banged up and gone in like 3 days.
As for fly tying, Sally Hansen's baby. Sally Hansen's, good old Sally. That's what I finish my wraps off with. That's what I paint some of my exotic color heads with. And then I like Sinful Color because they come in so many great colors. What are you showing up there, Jeff? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm sitting at my fly tank bench recording this, and here's my bottle of Sally Hansen hard as nails there.
All right. Well, fantastic. Okay. Well, this has been awful fun. I appreciate you all coming on here and filling us in on Ozark fly fishing, filling us in on something new, something fun, something that a lot of people are going to enjoy, with that joy that comes with finding the unexpected and finding it to be a whole lot of fun and good times. So please come back. I want to exploit your nerdy streak to the max, whether it's about Ozark bass or the rare species of trout or anything else, the gravel mining, degradation of streams. This is what we do on Nerds. We talk about, we're fishing and eating fish. We do technique a bit, but since that's so well covered in other pods and other media, we don't do as much of that as we do on conservation. And I don't know, and we're open to any sort of topic. You are our people. Anyway, thanks one more time, Jeff.
Anybody that's going to go out and catch long-ear sunfish, I think that's the highest point of the day, is a true fish nerd.
All right. If nobody has anything else, let's get on out of here because I'm out of beer. Talk to y'all soon. All right.
Thank you for having us.
All right. That was just a crazy, silly good time. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes. I want to have more time with them.
Yeah, I really do too. What a couple of great guys.
That true fish nerds. I mean, they are true fish nerds.
True fish nerds. And what a fantastic discovery and what a fun time we've had developing some rapport with these gentlemen. And we are so glad we could bring it to you. And don't worry, Jeff, because I cut a whole bunch of material out of this, folks. They talk about going to the driftless. We get off into a big, long sideline on the Ozarks. And I'm thinking about an episode where we kind of examine some of these alternative destinations. So either as a post-roll thing or a short feature or something like I did with Luke's stuff in the last show, we're going to have Aaron and Michael back on to talk about some of their fishing adventures. And hopefully we can get Aaron and or Michael to come back on and talk about flies or talk about geography or talk about weird trout fisheries in all the different states. That would be a great feature, I think. Definitely would be a great feature. Okay. I'm feeling a little hungry. I don't know about you, man. We've been talking a lot. And it makes me hungry.
That's right.
Well, you like fish tacos?
I love fish tacos.
And is there any one way to make a fish taco?
I'm kind of like I actually had them in like Baja, California. And if I remember correctly, they were kind of batter fried. And then there was like some shredded cabbage in there and some onions and some sort of a white sauce. And that's what I imprinted on. So that's pretty good.
That is really good because that is by and large the official version, if there is an official version. But, when folks in the USA get a hold of stuff and when these culinary ideas spread throughout different areas, people do their own twist. They do their own take. They follow their own vibe on this stuff. And I've got a charming lady coming up right now, Nicole Tracy Lewis, who I know from Instagram. And she is going to fill us in on the way her mama made fish tacos down in Trinidad, Tobago. Let's listen.
What are you gonna do with that fish that you caught? If you kill it, will you grill it? Will you blacken it in the skillet? We gotta make it delicious, so it's not for naught. Let's take a look at ways to cook it in the Fish Nerds Culinary Corner.
All right, Nicole, we follow each other on Instagram, and we like to watch each other hold up fish and talk about fishing and fly tying and all kinds of cool stuff. Tell the listeners where you're at, Nicole. You don't have to be specific, but what part of the country or what state or what area are you in?
Actually in Canada.
In Canada?
I am in Ontario, in our lovely nation's capital, Ottawa.
All right, fantastic. Wow, Ontario, that is spectacular. And Ottawa's a fairly big city?
Yeah, I think it's about 1 million people when you count all the suburbs that are sort of amalgamated. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
in Canadian terms, it's a big city. It's not as big as Toronto or Montreal, but it's still our capital. We like to think that we're a big city.
Well, what I'm getting at is it's probably not too far a drive to get to a good fishing hole.
No, and actually we're about an hour and 15 minutes from the border. And some of our best river fishing is upstate New York.
Oh, yeah.
And, we fish the salmon, the little salmon up around Malone and Fort Covington. And so that's the sort of closest river trout fishing. But the Ottawa itself is known for muskie. We have good pike. We have bass. We have good walleye. Apparently, there are about at least 83 different species of fish in the Ottawa River, if you count, the little minnows and darters and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But lots of catfish as well, crappie, bluegill, pumpkin seed, walleye, sauger, pike.
A lot of good eaters there. And what brought us here today, mentioning pumpkin seeds and sunnies and those sorts of fish, is I took some buddies out on the pond we share with the neighbor, and we really put it on the bluegill, although we were all in agreement. We were on vacation. We didn't feel like cleaning fish. So we let them all go. But you said something about how bluegill make the best fish tacos, and I can't dispute that, not for a second, not at all. And I invited you on to talk about fish tacos. Now, everybody talks about fish tacos because they're a ubiquitous dish. And this is fascinating because, it all started off down in Mexico way or in the Baja region and so forth and spread up through California. Now it's all over the USA and apparently heading north and apparently probably nonstop across the pond into Europe and everywhere else. So there's a lot of ways to make them. There's people that think they know the official way, but you can research fish taco history, and the attribution for the original is not entirely certain. And of course, it's like saying there's only one way to make a hamburger. There's a lot of ways to make a fish taco. And I want to start off with some of the contention points, because some of the experts say, for example, on your fish taco, do you like lettuce or cabbage?
No, I neither.
Neither.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're going to get into that here in a minute. Do you like the crema sauce, the creamy sauce, or do you use sour cream?
Sorry. Sometimes I'll use tartar sauce, but I really like the simple approach. And, my parents are from the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. So this is the West Indian flavor fish taco, right? So everything I do has a bit of a West Indian slant because I learned to cook from my mom, amazing cook. And I'm a big fan of the mango, and I like simple.
Okay, well then I'm going to just back off all these questions because this is thoroughly a USA argument: cheese or no cheese. Use the lime, the thin, the thinner crema that can come out of the squirt bottle with the lime in it, or do we use sour cream and all that? That's all just Midwestern Tex-Mex talk. Now this is fascinating. This is great. So I'm just going to let you take run of this. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll tell you. So I learned my first bluegill exposure to eating. A good friend of mine, Dan Lockheed, generously shared the fillet technique. So he taught me how to fillet panfish, and then first of all, I learned a really great trick to scale them because the skin is delicious when you fry it. So basically, you put the fish in the sink and you put some water in the sink, and the scales don't go everywhere when you use the scaler. So that's a really nice tip that I'll pass on, and that I know not everybody knows, but I found it a really useful tip. And people have complaints when they scale fish, scales go everywhere. This is one way to eliminate that.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but you might have just saved my marriage. So there you go right there. Because I didn't have that skill. I had not learned that trick. And by golly, I am going to use it because I can clean up. And I still see some fish scales around here. So anyway, good tip. All right, keep going, Nicole.
And then, so once I fillet my fish, I like to make a mixture of about 3/4 flour, 1/4 fine cornmeal, not the super fine like the masa that you make it's got a little bit of texture to it still, fine, but still granular. And I put some salt and pepper and I mix that well, and then I coat my fish in it and I lightly pan fry the fish. And I use corn or half corn, half whole wheat taco shells. And I make a simple mango salsa. And my mango salsa is basically, I like to take a mango that isn't completely too ripe, so it still has some firmness to it. It's not completely sweet. So you get a little bit of that tart, a little bit of that sweet. I cube the mango. I use a lime, the juice of a lime. I use some red onion and I use some fresh cilantro, salt and pepper. And basically, the fried fish goes into the taco first, and then the mango salsa goes over it. And that's it. Cool and delicious. And my family, that's all they want to eat. They don't want to eat salmon. They don't want to eat striped bass. They don't want to eat trout. They just want bluegill, and they just want bluegill tacos all the time.
Well, that is fabulous. That is fabulous. I love the simplicity. And because I'll tell you one thing about a lot of cooks and chefs in the USA is that people diddle with stuff and fool with stuff. And when you're using something like a bluegill, less is definitely more. It is a light, delicate fish with a flavor all its own. And light fleshed fish like crappie and bluegill, people say don't have the flavor, but it's there. It's just, it's delicate.
Absolutely.
It's delicate. And so no garlic, no bell peppers, no big heat. Don't bring all that on. Don't overload it with veg because it's going to mess up the signal. Well, that is fantastic. I appreciate you coming on the show this morning, taking time out of your Sunday to sit down and talk with me a few minutes about fish tacos. And now we have the Caribbean style of fish taco that I am definitely going to try. And I love that tortilla choice because I was going to ask you, is it corn or flour? And you got is that something you can get in Ottawa, or how do you?
Yeah, we got these half and halfers, and they're quite good. So you got that both that the corn can sometimes be a little crumbly, right?
Right.
The whole wheat helps hold everything together, So yeah. And John, thank you for inviting me. This was really sweet.
Well, it's easy to be sweet with a nice person like you that is as excited about fishing and as excited about cooking fish as you are. We are kindred spirits, and you certainly belong to have your voice heard on the Fish Nerds. So one more thank you. And Nicole, I'll let you get on with your Sunday.
Thanks a lot, John. Listen, you have a great day, and love being one of your Instagram followers. Always really happy to see your posts and great stuff. Thank you.
What are you gonna do with that fish that you caught? If you kill it, will you grill it? Will you blacken it in a skillet? We gotta make it delicious, so it's not for naught. Let's take a look at ways to cook it in the Fish Nerds Culinary Corner.
I'm telling you, buddy, the people you meet on Instagram, right?
Well, now I need Trini fish tacos.
Yeah. I mean, the cornmeal, and then is this a Canada person only thing? The combination wheat, corn, tortilla? Because I've never seen such a thing, especially with whole wheat, especially with the whole wheat. I want it. I got to have it. I want this. I'm going to have to find it somewhere. I don't know. Oh my goodness, Jeff, what a big old show we've done tonight. You know what? These people been listening to us talk about fishing and eating fish when they should have been out fishing.
Yes, indeed.
The Fish Nerds podcast was created by Clay Groves and Dave Kellum. Chief Executive Fish Nerd is our own Clay Groves. Our producer is me, John Crappie Hippie King. Our associate producers are Todd Correa, the Fish Wrap Writer. Be sure and catch his column at fishwrappwriter.com. Tim Tacklebox Beat, Jeff, the fish nerd librarian Donaldson, and the fair flower standing in this field of weeds is our chief science correspondent, the one and only Doc Martin. Give us some thank yous, Jeff. Keep it going.
Well, we got a Wally present for the show theme, Diana's bath salts for the fish in the news theme, the 126s for the intro and exit music for Femboy, the mysterious baitcaster cylinder for our culinary corner music, Tim Tacklebox beat, Aaron and Michael, Tracy, Nicole Lewis, glass sweater, angling lead-free fishing. Check it out at glasswaterangling.com, but especially you, the listener, for bringing your ears right on in here and letting us fill them up with fish stuff.
That's right. That's right. And until next time, follow the code of the fish nerds. Spawn early and often.
Never trust a free lunch with strings attached.
And swim against the current every chance you get.
Looks like we just made ourselves a podcast.
Woo-hoo!
Whether you're fly fishing in a stream, getting those ankles wet, or deep in the ocean, casting nets, fish nerds. Fish nerds. Fish nerds. It's a podcast. Just for the halibut. Fry it in a basket or broiled in a pan. Eat it raw like you're in Siam. Fish nerds. Fish nerds.